Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the curb cut effect, auditing and optimizing accessibility in Slate. I'm Hannah. I'm the Assistant Director for Slate Advancement Implementations. I have a background in advancement. I come from being a former major gift officer and continue to be an advancement nerd. And my colors for our Carnegie personas, I am the attentive and entertaining thrill seeker. So I am red, green, and purple.
And hello, everyone. My name is Nick Porcella. I am the Assistant Director for Slate Trainings. I am a former high school teacher turned Slate teacher and excited to chat about all things accessibility today. I am the industrious and meticulous philosopher. My Carnegie colors are pink, green, and maroon. And so, where we're going to head today is really through a civil engineering lens to talk about Slate and accessibility work. It's all important work. But let's define a term to get started. The curb cut effect, where we're really diving in today, refers to how design solutions intended for a specific group often benefit a wider range of people, highlighting the unintended positive impact of inclusive design. And to think about this as a specific example, the curb cut for a wheelchair user, the little divot in a curb to allow someone to access the sidewalk, is not only good for someone with a visual impairment, but it's great for a parent pushing a stroller. It's great for someone delivering a large package who has a cart they're pushing. And so, this concept that some of the work we're doing for some people actually helps a wide audience.
And really, what is accessibility? Accessibility is ensuring that the web and Slate pages are designed to be usable by everyone. And this conversation is much broader than screen readers and ADA compliance. And today we will be getting into some of those broader topics. So, on today's agenda, we're going to be going through accessibility and what that means for Slate implementation. And then also talking about how you can level up your Slate accessibility in your own Slate instance. When it comes to accessibility and Slate implementations, we'll be discussing accessibility as a core requirement, where we are currently with one of our advancement implementation clients, and then also building with accessibility in mind and what that means for implementation. So we've had the privilege of working with Miami University on their accessibility needs as a campus. They work through the Access MU Center to create more accessible environments across campus by providing information and services that enhance the equal access for students with and without disabilities. And responsibilities for that include an accessibility review, testing of applications, any websites, any documents, accessibility training, and then also captioning support services. It's also important to note that accessibility as a core requirement for Miami University not only focuses on students, but actually staff and alumni as well, and the experiences that they have when using specific platforms through Miami University. So the accessibility process at Miami University begins with an RFP and continues through implementation. So the Miami Client Office engagement is really focused on obtaining and reviewing VPAT or voluntary product accessibility template from the vendor of the specific product, and then obtaining a test link and credential for access. So allowing them to go into the platform and having access to that platform. With that, then, it's very focused on accessibility testing. So automated testing, manual testing, usability testing, and quality assurance. And with all of that, after Miami's office has gone through and completed the accessibility testing, they continue to work with the vendor to share the accessibility testing results, not only with the vendor of that platform, but also any other associated parties who may be working with Miami University and the vendor as well. Fortunately, here at Carnegie, we have been working through this process with Miami University and Technolutions really from the beginning, and they continue to be transparent and open with us about their needs and accessibility testing results. And that's been really great for us when it comes to, continuing to further that relationship, but also making sure that Miami is going to get the best possible accessibility results that they absolutely need and are requirements for their campus. When it comes to Miami University's advancement instance for Slate and their implementation. Currently, we are going through the pre-implementation consultation where we are working through data cleanup and really focusing in on how we can best prepare the Miami University Advancement Implementation team to implement with any necessary items that they may need to know so that they have those in mind when it comes to implementation. And along with that pre-implementation consultation, there's been discussion on how we continue to make sure that we can focus on those key needs for Miami's accessibility requirements and what that looks like as we turn the corner from pre-implementation consultation into implementation. And with that, we will continue to take each of those accessibility requirements throughout implementation to build the most optimized instance for their needs. And with that, it's always important that as you're building something in Slate and you have these accessibility requirements, such as Miami does, it's important to note that through implementation, we'll be working module by module. So as we're going through and completing a module or a specific area within Slate and have really integrated and created the needs within, let's say, the deliver module or building out dashboards. We will continue throughout the entire process to make sure that we are testing every single item that we're building for those accessibility needs and requirements. The biggest thing that you can continue to do as you're going through implementation is making sure that you are checking your work with your accessibility needs and requirements. And so we're really fortunate to have a very specific list from Miami University on their needs for their campus requirements.
And whether you are new to Slate as an institution or part of a team that's been using Slate for a while, and really no matter where you are in your Slate life cycle, student success and retention, advancement, admissions, there's always work that we can do in accessibility. And so for the second half of our presentation, we're going to be diving into this concept of how do we level up Slate accessibility. I'll be walking through a few key and very common accessibility issues and compliance that we can dive into. So we'll get into the first one, which is alternative text. And the format here, we're going to share a little bit about each. Some folks might be very familiar with some and maybe not others. And some are inherently built into Slate, while others aren't. So a wide range here. But to kick things off, alternative text. First and foremost, what is alternative text? Often called alt text, this is simply a way to describe images. We think of this as being a tool for users with visual impairment, so that a screen reader can read the alt text to give details about the media, but to go to the curb cut effect mentality, it's something that can help anyone. For example, if you are in a rural setting with limited access to high-speed internet, it would also benefit you to have alternative text in case you can't view or download a particular image. Now we have some examples of each. We'll talk about standard functionality and how we can level it up. For alternative text, the standard functionality in Slate is none. Slate does not add alternative text to any media. And that's pretty common for platforms like Slate. We wouldn't expect it to because we want to be able to customize this content for each image and each piece of media. Now, media fall into a few different categories. We won't get into the major in and outs of these today, but essentially you have functional, decorative, informational media, and it really just depends on what is the goal. For example, if media is meant to convey information or help guide users to perform an action, it needs to have alt text. So what we can do is click into any media you see, whether that's in Slate Deliver messages or in portals, and you will see a section to add alternative text. We could spend a long time talking about how we make proper alternative text. And in a room full of 100 people, you might have 98 or 99 different versions of alternative text, and that's fine. Alternative text should exist if the image is conveying information or a function. And for example, here, we might assign this beautiful bird some alt text that says, cheeky Kia with greenish gold feathers looking devious. Next up would be line height. Simply stated, this is the amount of space between lines of text. And we can see two examples here. We have a purposely compliant and a purposely non-compliant line height. I think it's not difficult to see that one is much easier to read than another. And this would be another area where I think any user can empathize and experience this. If you are someone who uses a cell phone, as many of us do these days, and you are zooming in to read a menu or piece of a book online, if you zoom in and the lines start to blur together, it means someone didn't think about the line height. So on our next slide here, we will chat about how do we optimize this for our Slate work. So a couple notes. First, Slate does build in inherent functionality, and it would be what we would call sort of the minimum standard. It builds it as pixels. For example, you might go in and see line height listed as 90 pixels. It's fine, but it's not inherently mobile responsive. And so the very simple way to level up here is line height should be listed as a percentage at a minimum. And typically we recommend 150 or 200%. This would usually be done in lines of code in something like a deliver mailing, as you can see here on the right, swapping out in this case, as we did, 90 pixels for 150 or 200%. There's often another tool that might benefit you, M and REM. These are even better tools. We're not going to get into those today, but I would encourage additional research if you're looking to go even beyond standard compliance. Speaking of responsiveness, I think most folks already know what this is. You probably work with this quite a bit, but how do we ensure, in Slate's case, that our Slate pages, our mailings, look as good on a phone as they do on a laptop or any viewport? And for these, standard functionality varies. Some media may be inherently responsive, some might not. For this option, the way to level up is to hard code mobile responsiveness. Now, it would be not a very good use of our time to walk through what that code looks like here because it's very technical, but it's not hard to add. The idea here is we want to make images in line with the viewport that they're being viewed through, whether that's a phone, a laptop, a widescreen monitor, or whatever you have. And as a bonus to that, you also have the ability to set width as a percentage rather than pixels. So in this particular image you see here, as much as I love apple pie, I would prefer to see the second image where it's a little smaller. So in this concept here, the first image was likely set to some very large number of pixels that wasn't responsive, maybe 1,000 pixels, but it doesn't work when viewed on multiple viewports. So in this case, it was likely set to 50 or 75%, or it was hard-coded to be responsive to the viewport it was being viewed on. One that is a little bit more technical, but that I'm sure anyone can work with, would be presentation roles. So the definition of these would be, this is a way to tell assistive technologies to skip reading the actual code that creates tables and to thus only read user-facing text. So I always like to lead with empathy when we're discussing accessibility. It would be like anyone here reading a page and being actually met with the fact that you had to read code as well. So just imagine your normal reading experience being interrupted every few seconds by cell spacing equals 0, cell spacing equals 0, cell padding equals 0, cell class, ES wrapper width 100%. That would get very, very tedious. So as we'll see on the next slide here, there are ways, very easy ways, to do work in this to make the user experience positive and efficient for all. So the standard functionality is also none. Slate does not add presentation roles to any HTML. Now you have two choices for leveling up. You can see we have them highlighted here, at least one of those choices. And simply stated, it would be to include one of the following on every table that appears after the head CSS. I usually go with role equals presentation because that's what I learned on, but you can use role equals none. We have the 4 examples here. There might be dozens, if not hundreds of needs for this in a mailing, for example, but this will tell a screen reader or other assistive technology, hey, this is a table. We don't need to read the code for this. And last but not least, this is adjacent to accessibility, but I think it's a really easy win in Slate, and these would be message groups. So a note about how Slate uses message groups. Well, these tools are in the database. They are their own module. And the basic premise here is you have a allow unsubscribe or a no unsubscribe option when you're building mailings as default. Now, if somebody were to unsubscribe from that allow, then it would blanket unsubscribe them from everything. And so message groups in Slate allow you to very intentionally break out. I would like a group for athletics or arts or our marketing emails. And so the thinking is that a student receives that, or an alumni or a current student, any constituent, and they're able to decide, do I want to opt out of all mailings from this institution, or do I just want to opt out of some? So that's the background. But what we're really discussing here in accessibility land is that message groups are actually dictated by the Federal Trade Communications Center Can-Spam Act. This is a basic premise that says an organization, i.e. all of us, must provide a physical mailing address in the footer of all mass marketing messages. Now, as we go to the next slide, I'll give a couple of notes here. We often get the question, well, how do I know what's mass market? Generally speaking, it's any communication to 2 or more people. And the second question we often get is, well, if my templates already have my physical mailing address, do I need to include it here? And the short answer is it would probably be wise in case something ever gets deleted. But technically, no. You just need your physical address once listed in every email that is considered mass market. Now, Slate functionality as a standard is none. It starts out blank. So you would find this tool again in the message groups uh, section of the database. And you can see it even says this optional line is included. This is not optional. I would highly, highly encourage that everyone who needs to fill this out, please go put in your institution with your physical address. You can be fined by the FTC for this, and we've known institutions who have. The current fine for this is just a hair over $52,000. Seems like a lot of money for not putting in one line of content. So the level up here is very simple, and we really like to end with this easy win if you haven't done it. Add your physical address to the unsubscribe organization in every message group that you build. And with that, we'll pass it back over to Hannah.
Yeah. So really, it's important for everybody to consider the unintended benefits that come from designing systems that accommodate individuals with disabilities, which often leads to improvements that benefit everyone. So the curb cut effect. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and hope you have a fantastic day.